Okay, I think we are live. If there's any technical discrepancy, please let me know in the chat. All right, then we'll continue with our series for preparation of the MCA and the NIMCET exam. Today is officially your first vocabulary session. So we'll discuss that. We'll discuss the types of questions, the strategy, how to approach them, everything in this session. This is going to be the first session of vocabulary. I'm definitely going to be having more sessions of the same in the future. So let's begin. Introduction to vocabulary. The exams that you are targeting can ask you vocabulary in two forms. Okay, first form would be an independent question, okay, where they have given you one word. Okay, let me just write a word, why not? One word, and find the synonym or antonym of the given word. Okay, synonym, antonym, or meaning of the given word. Just independent word, not used in a sentence, not used in the RC, nothing. One word and the synonym, antonym, or whatever. The other way that you can get a vocabulary question is through contextual means. Contextual मतलब या तो आरसी में यूज्ड है या फिर एक सेंटेंस में यूज करके दिया है और फिर उसे हाईलाइट किया है और बोला है इस शब्द का मतलब निकालो, इस शब्द का एंटोनिम निकालो, इस वर्ड का सिनोनिम निकालो. So these are the two ways that you can get vocabulary question. Okay, no matter what exam you are targeting, हर एग्जाम में वोकैबलरी इन्हीं दो तरीके से पूछा जाता है. एक इंडिपेंडेंट, why have I written the example? Just let me write the first way is independent. The word is completely independent, not used anywhere, and you have to give a synonym, antonym, or the meaning of it. Same goes for contextual. It is highlighted, and you can be asked for a synonym, antonym, or the meaning of the given word. Simple. So then, for both of the question, the approach changes. This session will focus on contextual usage and contextual finding and solving of the question. The independent part will be discussed in the future lectures. But because this is your first vocabulary session, I want to also introduce on how one should prepare for vocabulary. So the preparation for vocabulary totally depends on its usage. Okay, so if you're preparing for vocabulary for making your language, English language, better, for learning newer words, okay, for changing the way you talk to make your communication better, all of those which are long term measures for learning vocabulary and implementing vocabulary, for that the approach changes. I will build on that. But for only exam, if you only want to get good enough marks and take out a good number of questions in the given exam, the approach again changes. ठीक है, तो सिर्फ मैं पहले एग्जाम के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बात करूं. The exam that you are targeting is one NIMCET, the other one is MCA CET. तो CET का जो लेवल है vocabulary का इतना मुश्किल नहीं है. कलोकियल वर्ड्स पूछता है. कलोकियल यानी कॉमन वर्ड्स जो हम यूज करते हैं या फिर पैराग्राफ या पैसेज या आर्टिकल या जर्नल, इनमें यूज किया जाता है. ज्यादा डीप वर्ड्स, टेक्निकल वर्ड्स, जार्गन वर्ड्स नहीं पूछे जाते. तो उसके हिसाब से यू नीड टू प्रिपेयर. नाउ how the preparation should go depends on the time that you're watching this video. If you have time, for example, now the video is being shot in the month of June. Now, because you have time, your priority should be, okay, because it's June, you have almost a full year till the paper. Your priority should be to solve this book called Norman Lewis's book, which is Word Power Made Easy. सुना ही होगा ये बुक के बारे में, क्योंकि चाहे जो competitive एग्जाम हो, अगर उसमें vocabulary का क्वेश्चन आता है, this is what students refer to. No matter what the exam is, this is the famous Bible for vocabulary. अगर ये पढ़ लिया, काफी कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा. ठीक है, उसका थिकनेस, किताब का थिकनेस देख के डर मत जाना. वो उतना सा किताब आपको बहुत सारे वर्ड सिखाएगा. 1000 से 2000 वर्ड सिर्फ उतने से किताब में आप सीख पाओगे आराम से. क्यों? क्या तरीका है नॉर्मन लुइस का? नॉर्मन लुइस आपको शब्द नहीं सिखा रहा है, नॉर्मन लुइस आपको सिखा रहा है कि शब्द बनते कैसे हैं. क्योंकि इंग्लिश का खुद का कोई वजूद नहीं होता है. इंग्लिश लैटिन, फ्रेंच, ठीक है, थोड़ा सा इंडियन और यूरोपियन लैंग्वेज, ग्रीक, इससे बोरो करके अपनी लैंग्वेज बनाई है उसने. आधी इंग्लिश लैटिन ही है. सो इन्हीं शब्दों से बहुत सारे शब्द बनते हैं. इन छोटे शब्द को कहते हैं रूट वर्ड्स, और इन्हीं रूट वर्ड्स से मल्टीपल इंग्लिश के वर्ड्स बनते हैं जो थेमेटिकली सेम होते हैं रूट वर्ड्स के. Norman Lewis will teach you exactly those. He will teach you root words. Okay, and then you will at least have the idea of what a root word means. So, what could the word associated with this root word could potentially mean? तो एटलीस्ट ऑप्शन आसपास तो मिल जाएगा, थोड़े से एलिमिनेट तो हो जाएंगे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल ईगो, ईगोटिस्ट, egocentric, egomaniac. ठीक है, all of these words have one common word which is ego. ठीक है, egoist, egocentric, egomaniac, egotist और egoist अलग है. तो ये 4 शब्द हैं, चारों में ईगो है. तो फिर ईगो क्या हुआ? सो इंस्टेड ऑफ यू गाइज लर्निंग दीज वर्ड्स इंडिपेंडेंटली, अच्छा ईगोटिस्ट का मतलब ये होता है, ईगोसेंट्रिक का मतलब ये होता है, ईगोमेनियक ये होता है, और रट्टा लगाने से बेहतर है, इट्स बेटर यू लर्न हाउ अ वर्ड इज मेड. Egotist is made with the word ego, and ego means self. So egotist, somebody who is again somebody who's very self-obsessed, conceited. Okay, egoist is also very similar. Egocentric, जो अपने आप को बीच में रखता है, ठीक है, जिसको लगता है पूरी दुनिया मेरे आसपास घूमती है या मेरे अराउंड घूमती है. Egomaniac, ठीक है, इसमें एक और शब्द आता है मेनिया. जैसे ऊपर वाले शब्द में है सेंटर, वैसे ही नीचे वाले शब्द में है मेनिया. ओके, मेनिया मतलब पागलपन. सो एक ऐसा इंडिविजुअल जो इतना ऑब्सेस्ड है अपने सेल्फ से कि वो ऑलमोस्ट पागलपन के एज पे है, राइट? इतना ऑब्सेस्ड है कि इज ऑलमोस्ट मैड अबाउट हिमसेल्फ और हरसेल्फ. सो दैट इज ईगोमेनिया. सो instead of independently learning the words, Norman Lewis will teach you root words. And that's exactly what our focus is going to be for next session. In the next session, we will be discussing a couple of root words, but there are many root words. So what I want you to do, because you have time right now, you can easily solve the Norman Lewis book at least once. So that should be your preparation for vocabulary. All right. Usually people go all aboard. Okay. They usually make placards and they try to make a huge long list of words. Honestly, for 2 to 3 marks, all of that is not really worth it. Let me just get rid of all of the ink. Okay, so as I mentioned, for the people who are starting in June, or somebody who has time a year or 6 months or 8 months, can easily commit to this book. But if you're watching this video a month before or 2 months before the exam, committing to that book, it's been a little too late for that. तो क्या काम करना है? वोकैबुलरी के लिए क्या करना है? कुछ नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं करो वोकैबुलरी के लिए. लास्ट के 2 3 महीनों में ऐसे कोई मैजिक वर्ड्स नहीं है जो आप पहले से सीख के जा सकते हो, उसका मतलब जो एग्जाम में हेल्प करेगा, राइट? देयर आर नो सर्टेन वर्ड्स दैट विल डायरेक्टली हेल्प यू in the exam. Vocabulary is an ocean. There's so many words in vocabulary, thousands, lakhs of words in vocabulary. There is no way of telling कौन सा word आएगा. So वो तो 2-3 मार्क के लिए प्लीज इतना टाइम वेस्ट मत करो. Better put it in your computer application, put it in your mathematics, in your grammar, okay, in your logical reasoning. इन सेक्शन में ज़्यादा टाइम इनका सब प्रिपेयर करके जाना. वो 2-3 मार्क्स के लिए ज़्यादा टाइम वेस्ट मत करना. बट नाउ दैट यू हैव टाइम, रीस्टार्ट विद नॉर्मन लुइस. ठीक है? I will build upon more on that idea in the next session. ठीक है? Root words and how to work on that. In the next session, we will focus on today's session at hand, which is contextual vocabulary. क्या होती है contextual vocabulary? This is contextual vocabulary. Okay? A word that is used in a sentence and then its meaning is asked, or synonym or antonym. It could be used in one single sentence or in an RC. If your test or if your exam has an RC, there's a good chance a vocab question is asked. So, and also एक बहुत ही मैजिकल और बहुत ही बेस्ट पार्ट होती है इस चीज़ की, अगर आरसी के एंड पे vocab का क्वेश्चन है ना, तो प्लीज़ अटेम्प्ट करो, क्योंकि बिल्कुल कम समय लगता है उसमें और उसके लिए पूरा आरसी भी नहीं पढ़ना पड़ता. ठीक है? तो अगर लास्ट का बिल्कुल भी टाइम नहीं बचा है और पूरा का पूरा आरसी रह गया है, तो ये जो क्वेश्चन है ये अपने आप निकल जाएगा. पूरा आरसी पढ़ने के लिए का ज़रूरत भी नहीं है. ठीक है? बट कैसे निकलेगा? Let's do that. Let's work on that. All right, small excerpt right here. Let's try to read it and try to understand the meanings of the underlined words. From ancient Rome up to the Victorian era, a training in logic and rhetoric was meant to help privileged young men. A training in logic and rhetoric. Now, what is contextual vocabulary? It has been used in a sentence. यानी बहुत हिंट है, हिंट्स ही हिंट्स हैं हर जगह. ठीक है? इसका हिंट क्या मिलेगा? यहाँ मिल जाएगा. ठीक है? लॉजिक एंड रेटरिक. देयर इज अ ट्रेनिंग हैपनिंग इन लॉजिक एंड रेटरिक. अगर लॉजिक एक सब्जेक्ट है तो रेटरिक भी एक सब्जेक्ट ही हुआ. ठीक है? तो मैं अपने ऑप्शन में देखूंगी कि कौन सा ऑप्शन एक सब्जेक्ट पे पॉइंट कर रहा है, एक डिसिप्लिन पे पॉइंट कर रहा है, एक स्किल पे पॉइंट कर रहा है, क्योंकि ट्रेनिंग की बात चल रही है. Privileged young men recognize spurious arguments and facts. Spurious arguments. Again, I don't really have a conjunction to help me, but I do have part of speech. Okay, part of speech will help me. How? Spurious arguments. What part of speech is spurious? Argument हुआ आपका noun. Spurious therefore is your adjective. Okay, so I need to look for an adjective. Spurious has to be an adjective. I need to look for a word or words that are describing. Times have changed, but contemporary Italy is determined. Times have changed, but. So, पहले बात हो रही थी एंशियंट रोम की, पुराने समय की, और अब बोल रहा है टाइम्स बदल गए हैं. यानी ऑब्वियसली अभी करंटली की बात होगी, आज की बात होगी. But contemporary Italy is determined that its youth are prepared, as their ancient counterparts were, to engage meaningfully with the present day version, social media. So, this is obviously talking about something that is happening currently, because it says times have changed. So, the most important part to solve a contextual vocabulary question is always try to read two words or two lines before the word, okay, and two words slash lines after the word. ठीक है, दो लाइन ऊपर का, दो लाइन नीचे का, दो शब्द ऊपर का, दो शब्द पीछे का. सबसे बेस्ट हिंट वहीं मिल जाता है यूजुअली हिंट वहीं मिल जाता है, जैसे हमें यहाँ मिला था, जैसे हमें यहाँ मिला था. It's determined that its youth are prepared as their ancient counterparts were to engage meaningfully with the present day version of the forum social media. ठीक है, engage का मतलब भी निकाला जा सकता है through again the hint of part of speech. ठीक है, engage meaningfully, were to engage meaningfully आपका एक adverb होता है. ठीक है, usually words that end with ly are adverbs. तो engage obviously हुआ verb. ठीक है, so I need to therefore look for a verb when I'm looking for engage. So सिर्फ इतना सा पैराग्राफ करके let's look and check the meaning of the underlined words. Okay, now we have to match the words with the correct definition. पहला है rhetoric. हमने देखा था rhetoric एक सब्जेक्ट है जो लॉजिक के साथ ही यूज हुआ था. So let's go through all of them. Okay, not being what it appears to be, false or fake, belonging to or occurring in the present, occupy or attract someone's interest, the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing. Okay, D definitely sounds like a skill, like a subject that requires training, and जिसके लिए बच्चों को ट्रेनिंग दिया जा रहा था. So one should definitely match D, पर दोनों ही ऑप्शन में मैच हो रहा है. So let us match the other words also. Contemporary, as we saw, was contrasting. Okay, but the times have changed. और अभी इटली में क्या चल रहा है. So contemporary was a very easy guess. Contemporary means belonging to the present. Okay, so fourth should be, oh, I'm sorry, third should be B. Then we saw engage was a verb. So I need to find a verb for this. Engage was a verb, and there's only one verb that I can find here, which is C. Occupy and attract, they are also verbs. So a verb can match easily with a verb. Then we had counterparts and then spurious. Okay, spurious के लिए हमें मिल गया था ये एक adjective था, a describing word, right? So what is spurious? We are left with either A or E. A person or a thing is definitely not an adjective, it is a noun. A, not being what it appears to be, false or fake, definitely an adjective. So spurious has to be A. So all of these options are pointing to option B. So the answer for this is B, right? So contextual vocabulary usage makes finding the answer very easy. Let's focus on this paragraph. The purpose of these courses is to ensure that the public debate, particularly during election campaigns, is not hijacked. Now, तीसरा तरीका होता है tone. Tone यानी is this word positive or is this word negative? Right? Now their concern is that election campaigns are not hijacked. Something like this should not happen. So obviously this word is a negative word. Not hijacked by biased interest. Again, a negative word. They don't want this scenario to happen to them. Since the US presidential election in 2016, the specter of Russia and its use of online propaganda has loomed large over public discourse in the West. Okay, public discourse in the West. So public discourse, this has to be therefore a noun. Loomed has to be a verb, right? Spectre, again a noun. Before watching this session, I hope you've watched parts of speech, because what is a verb, what is a noun, adjective, it is all explained in the part of speech, which is the introduction to grammar session. So now let's go back and try to match these words with their appropriate definitions. Okay, first was hijacked. Hijacked was, as we saw, something negative. So let us look at all the words. Something widely feared as a possible dangerous, unpleasant or dangerous occurrence. ठीक है, समथिंग है तो फटाफट से हाईजैक का पार्ट ऑफ स्पीच भी समझ लेते हैं. Hijacked है is not hijacked by bias interest. They don't want this to happen or something to happen to them. So this is obviously a verb because they don't want this particular activity to happen in their campaigns. So hijacked is a verb now. A is not a verb. B is a verb but not really negative. C is not a verb again. D is not a verb again. E is a verb. To take over something is a verb. It's an activity and use it for a different purpose. Okay. Again, something that's negative, to take over something and use it for something else. Okay. It's terrorizing somebody or controlling somebody. So one clearly should match with E on what hints? On part of speech and on tonal basis, on tone. So one has to match with E. Then we saw bias interest. Now they did not want bias in election campaign. So it has to therefore do something with that. Why would they not want bias in election campaign? Right? B and C are very neutral terms. A और D में से कुछ होता है, हो सकता है. A is said saying something widely feared as a possible unpleasant or dangerous occurrence. So a dangerous event, or to have a personal prejudice interest. So the next word was biased interest. So according to this second word, this one makes no sense. Statement A has no relation to the word interest. So A to bilkul nahi ho sakta. The answer therefore has to be D, to have a personal prejudice, to have such particular interest where you are only looking for the things that you are prejudiced against or prejudiced for. ठीक है, फिर हमने देखा था discourse, which was, as we found, was a noun. So now we have to find for a noun out of these. Something seem about to happen and written or spoken. तो ये तो verb है अपना. Something widely feared as a possible unpleasant or dangerous, ये हो सकता है noun, क्योंकि ये something है और ये भी noun हो सकता है. So let us then check the other options. Loomed हमें पता चल गया था verb है, जो यहाँ एक और verb दिया है. So this should match with this. Then we are left with two nouns and two definitions. So now we'll have to resort to a different way to find its meaning. ठीक है, तो पीछे जाते हैं और दो शब्द आगे के, दो शब्द पीछे के बढ़ते हैं. ठीक है, पहला वाला कौन सा था? Spectre. The specter of Russia and its use of online propaganda has loomed large over public discourse in the West. Okay, so this one obviously has to do with something public. Public discourse in the West. Public, something widely feared as possible unpleasant, makes no sense. But public discourse, as in public written or spoken communication or debate. Public debate definitely makes sense, right? Public debate in the West is opposing whatever is happening in Russia. So fifth as a noun could definitely match C. And जो specter बचा, that is A. Specter literally means a threat. So the answer for this is clearly option A. Right. So out of multiple hints, a question like this becomes very approachable. And if your exam has a reading comprehension and they're asking a word like this or a question like this, please, you can easily attempt a question like this through these strategies. ठीक है? This was the first paragraph. Let's try one more. Few look forward to old age and all that brings in its wake deteriorating health, loss of vigor, restricted mobility, increasing dependence on others, not to mention a sense of foreboding and anxiety. A lot of words are used, but let's try to understand the tone of these words, in what context they are used. Well, as you can see, it's talking about mobility कम हो जाती है, dependence बढ़ जाता है, right? So obviously all of these words are discussing something negative that happens during old age. So deteriorating and loss of vigor and deteriorating both are negative words. A sense of foreboding and anxiety, मतलब दोनों terms similar हैं. So foreboding is going to be similar to anxiety. Anxiety का मतलब है घबराहट. ठीक है, तो foreboding घबराहट से ही similar होगा. Then prepare, accept old age in spite of the restrictions or limitations it imposes on one's mobility. ठीक है, it is doing something on one's mobility. So this is also therefore a verb. Equally important is the need to adopt a positive attitude towards life. Okay, all the words that we have done so far, let us quickly check their meaning. First was deteriorating, which was something that was negative. Then vigor, it says loss of vigor, so I don't think loss of vigor should be negative. Vigor is something that is neutral. Apologies, we are losing the vigor. So this is negative, whereas this is not negative. We are losing this. So this is something definitely essential to us. Mobility and everything is depending on the physical aspect that happens when you're transitioning to old age. So vigor therefore has to do with a physical change. ठीक है, मुझे इधर टोन हेल्प नहीं किया, बट हाँ, दो वर्ड्स आगे के और दो वर्ड्स पीछे के, वो हेल्प जरूर किया. ठीक है, physical change. So let us quickly check. Deteriorating is also again very easy to tell a verb. So we need to find a negative verb, which I can find is only, okay, D is also a negative verb, to force on someone. Beginning of something specially unpleasant could also be a verb. A feeling that something bad will happen is also a negative verb. And A, becoming progressively worse, is also a negative verb. So therefore I need more clues to find what deteriorating means. Let us check on what context it was used. It was used on deteriorating health. ठीक है, तो health से related है. Health से B और E कुछ भी related नहीं है. But health progressively becomes worse when we get old. So one should match with A. ठीक है, जब हम ओल्ड होते हैं तो हम अपना विगर लूज करते हैं. ठीक है, तो दैट वाज रिलेटेड टू फिजिकल चेंज, सो दैट ऑब्वियसली हैज टू मैच विद सी, फिजिकल स्ट्रेंथ एंड एनर्जी. फोरबोर्डिंग वाज रिलेटेड टू द वर्ड एंजाइटी, जो घबराहट के बारे में होता है, एंड similar word is foreboding. So only word that is similar to the word anxiety is B, a feeling that something bad will happen. ठीक है, imposes verb था onset, where was onset, Okay, onset is also a verb. All right, now let's check the definition. Imposes is forcing on someone or the beginning of something especially unpleasant. So it has to be one of them. So I need some more hint. In spite of the restrictions or limitation, it imposes on one's mobility. ठीक है? Yet one has to learn with the cope with the onset of old age. ठीक है, ये सारे चीजें होती हैं, फिर भी एक जन को सीखना पड़ता है टू कोप विथ द onset of old age. So obviously onset of old age यानी अब से old age चालू हो चुकी है. The beginning of old age makes most sense. So we're left with imposes, so we can match it with this. So clearly the answer for this should be option A. Let's try to do the remaining words also. The role of humor and fun are indispensable as these are spice of life and guaranteed to bring cheer and bonhomie. Again, पॉजिटिव है ये शब्द. cheer and bonhomie ये भी पॉजिटिव है क्योंकि cheer पॉजिटिव है और cheer और bonhomie सिमिलर होने चाहिए क्योंकि and लगा है. Besides keeping one's mind off life's grim realities. Above all, peace of mind is the efficacious balm that brings equanimity. So सारे ही positive हैं. Brings equanimity, ये भी positive है, to one's life. We must resign ourselves to growing old and in the process let us try to make the life as fulfilling and meaningful as possible. Let's go to the options. Okay, so multiple ways were discussed. Now I'm going to teach you the fourth way, which is root words. ठीक है, ये करना जरूरी है. This will help you a lot. ठीक है, जैसे है word born homie. ये word है एक फ्रेंच वर्ड. ये फ्रेंच वर्ड से बना है. ठीक है, आप लोगों ने सुना ही होगा bon voyage, bonjour, bon appetit. ठीक है, all of these words are said to wish something, okay, to cheer something. जैसे good meal, bon appetit बोलते हैं तो good meal, bon voyage, have a good journey. So bon means good, and homie is also a French word which means friend. So bon homie has to do with something good, friend. Okay, the closest word I can see is cheerful, friendliness. So bon homie should be this because again it's positive and इससे पहले वाला word था cheer. So cheer and cheerful friendliness are very similar elements. Next is indispensable. Now again it's made from two words, in plus dispensable. जिसमें से इन रूट वर्ड है और नेगेटिव रूट वर्ड है, यानी ये किसी भी चीज का ऑपोजिट बना देता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल सफिशिएंट का ऑपोजिट इनसफिशिएंट, वैसे ही डिस्पेंसिबल का ऑपोजिट इनडिस्पेंसिबल. तो फिर डिस्पेंसिबल का मतलब क्या होता है? डिस्पेंसिबल का मतलब होता है डिस्पोजेबल, जो डिस्पोज किया जा सकता है, डिस्कार्ड किया जा सकता है. तो इनडिस्पेंसिबल क्या हुआ? जो डिस्कार्ड नहीं किया जा सकता. Therefore obviously it's something so important, इसलिए तो वो डिस्कार्ड नहीं किया जा सकता. Okay, so one has to be C, absolutely necessary. ठीक है, फिर आता है equanimity. Equa plus animus ऐसे बनता है ये शब्द. Equa means equal and animus means mind or spirit. So your mind is in very equal state. Your spirit is in a very equal, very same, very leveled state. कब होता है आपका mind एकदम leveled state में? When you're calm, right? When there's no sort of extreme feelings happening, when it's completely calm, it's in a very leveled, equal state. So equanimity, therefore, means calmness, especially in a difficult situation. So fifth should match with D. ठीक है? Grim word, where was the word grim? Right here. Besides keeping one's mind off life's grim realities. So let's look for context here. The role of humor are important as these are the spice of life and guaranteed to bring cheer, besides keeping one's mind off life's grim reality. So they are saying हंसना जरूरी है, खुशी जरूरी है ताकि उन लोग का माइंड ऑफ रहे लाइफ की ग्रिम रियलिटी से. So this is obviously a negative word. Why else would they want their mind to not go in that direction? So grim is something negative. Out of the remaining words, I can only find E being something negative. So this should match with E. And then efficacious is clearly something that is successful in producing a desired or intended effect. So the answer for this is clearly option B. Clear hints, there are multiple hints. As we can see, there are multiple strategies. After applying these strategies, you will easily eliminate options, and if you can eliminate two options, बाकी दो भी एक बार पैसेज में सब्स्टिट्यूट करके चेक करना, उसके हिसाब से eliminate करके choose and lock your answer. Okay, this is the last paragraph which I would like you guys to try yourself. It's a very tiny paragraph with only 5 words. Okay, so first read the paragraph well. Use all of these strategies that I had taught you in this session and choose the answer for this one. Put the answer in the comment section and I will check if your answer is correct or not. Okay, in the next session that we have, I will be discussing more on vocabulary. I will be discussing specifically root words. ठीक है, जो आज हमने किया वो contextual vocabulary पे था. Next session होगा independent vocabulary पे. So we'll be discussing a lot of root words and how to study them. Okay, उसका source मैंने आज बता दिया है, Norman Lewis, Word Power Made Easy. So the earlier you start, the better it is for you. But how else to get into that and what other potential strategies there are to the questions, I'll discuss it in the next session. All right, that is it from my end. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week.